So, the topic for today, episode number 224, is 2020, A Freedom Odyssey. This is obviously a take on 2001, A Space Odyssey, and this is about, will humanity actually break its chains and become a Type 1 civilization and continue its evolutionary development in both consciousness and physically, and socially and technologically, and basically move out beyond the confines of our planet into the stars beyond and our solar system and beyond. So there are many prerequisites for something like this taking place. It really does have to do with the true evolutionary development of a species. And I want to first explain what a Type 1 civilization means, because many people may not have heard about this term, a Type 1 civilization. So then are there other types? And yes, there are. So for those who may not be familiar with the types of civilizations that exist throughout the universe, or that are postulated to exist throughout the universe, this is known as the Kardashev scale of civilizations. It's a very interesting topic. I first heard about it many years ago, listening to talk radio, and the scientist who proposed this scale of the types of civilizations in our universe was named Nikolai Kardashev, where the term Kardashev scale comes from. He was a Soviet cosmologist, and he proposed this idea that there are different types of civilizations, of beings that have a higher order intelligence, and that it is essentially based on the type of energy that they sustain themselves upon, because all life in the universe requires energy. And he proposed a scale of civilizations that really had to do with what type of energy that they used and on what scale. So a Type 1, or a planetary civilization on the Kardashev scale, can use and store all energy that is available on that civilization's host planet. Okay, so in other words, if we were a Type 1 civilization, we would be able to use the energy coming to the Earth from the sun. We would be able to use geothermal energy, etc., or possibly even, energy that we tap into that is known as radiant energy or free energy from potential other sources. And we would not need to burn hydrocarbons for a source of fuel, what people laughingly call fossil fuels. These things are not from fossils that have decayed and become into oil. They're abiotic sources of fuel that come from our planet and are renewed just like we renew our blood in our body. If a pint of blood is taken out, it is then regenerated and renewed with the hemoglobin. Oil is the same way on the earth. It is like the lifeblood of the earth, and it is regenerated from the earth. The idea that there's a thing called peak oil, we're going to, quote, run out of oil. Certain areas of the earth could be, drilled dry, yes, but it doesn't mean that it won't eventually be replenished. And, I've said many times, this is basically raping and pillaging the earth for its resources, because it's like tapping into the veins of a human being and pulling its blood out. It's like a vampiric system. Okay, so a true Type 1 civilization would not do this to its host planet, because it would realize you're in danger of actually killing your host planet, and they would be more intelligent than to, continue to extract hydrocarbon fuels like this and burn them in a polluting way and in an unsustainable way. So they would move on to solar and geothermal forms of energy and other forms of energy, like I said, free energy, radiant energy. So we are not even a Type 1 civilization. I'll talk about in a moment what Earth and human civilization constitutes on the Kardashev scale, the estimate by most scientists. But that's a Type 1 or planetary civilization. A Type 2 civilization is called a stellar or perhaps a solar civilization in some ways of explaining this. But in general, they call it a stellar civilization. And that means that that civilization can use and control energy at the scale of its entire solar system, meaning that it can harness the energy of its host star. Okay? So if we harness the energy of the sun truly, the full potential energy of the sun, we would be considered a Type 2 stellar civilization. Clearly, a stellar civilization would have begun the process of space travel and visiting other planetary systems in its local galactic neighborhood. When you move up the scale of civilizations to a higher order of, energy capability, and obviously a higher order of intelligence and technology, and I would suggest a higher order of spirituality, you get to what is known as a galactic civilization, which we can scarcely conceive of. First of all, we would be able to scarcely conceive of a Type 2 civilization. The technology of a Type 2 civilization would begin to outstrip even human imagination where it is right now. And we would perceive anything of a Type 2 or higher as supernatural or magic, it would seem to us. We would barely be able to conceive of their technological advancements and feats, and they would seem like almost supernatural beings to us, okay? I likened it to taking a piece of high technology developed in the modern world today back into the Bronze Age or the Stone Age and showing it to an early human, and they would not even be able to conceive of what you were showing them. Okay, so it's similar to that, except extrapolate that to way out to advanced technology. We would not even be able to conceive of what their technology was doing in any form, okay, or what it even was. But a Type 3 would be well beyond even a Type 2, because they got to the point where not only can they harness the energy of stars individually, they can harness the energy of all the stars of a galaxy, or at least a local galactic neighborhood, okay? Some people say that this could be semi-galactic and or eventually becoming a full Type 3 would mean they can harness the energy of an entire galaxy. It's almost inconceivable to us as human beings, considering the scale that we're operating on here on Earth, and we have not moved beyond our planet. Most people can't even conceive of the scale of the Earth, first of all, okay? This is why you have so many misconceptions of the size, shape of the Earth, etc. People can't even conceive of the size of how large our planet is. It is almost unfathomably large to a human being. And people really can't even conceptualize things at a planetary scale, much less at a scale of a solar system, much less at a scale of interstellar distances between stars, or how large a galaxy is, or then how large the intergalactic space between galaxies is. It's almost inconceivable to most human beings. Their mind cannot even think in terms of distances like that or sizes like that. So a Type 3 or galactic civilization would be something akin to the Borg or beyond the Borg's capabilities of Star Trek lore, okay? They can use and control energy at the scale of its entire host galaxy. Now, there's also a postulated Type 4 civilization on the Kardashev scale. And a Type 4 civilization would truly be able to do things that we would consider supernatural. So we're talking about literally bending space-time, manipulating space-time, traveling in time, traveling between galaxies in almost instantaneously, incredible feats of thought, mental prowess, literally leaving this type of space-time continuum and inhabiting others, possible other membranes of space-time that are proposed, that exist. So we're talking about a universal civilization at that point, that they would be not only intergalactic but universal, and they would theoretically harness the energy of the entire universe. Obviously, there probably is not a civilization anywhere in the universe that is that advanced, but there are probably some civilizations in the universe at this point that have evolved to the point of being at least semi-galactic or galactic civilizations. It's been proposed by many people that Earth may be being controlled or manipulated by a Type 2 civilization. If a civilization was so advanced to be a Type 2 or stellar civilization, again, their technology would be almost invisible or inconceivable to us. They would be so far technologically advanced, and if they were prone to use us as a resource or a farm of some type, it may theoretically be possible that that is already occurring here on Earth. But we can speculate about that from now until the end of time. The solution is still the same. The solution is growing in consciousness and truly growing in spirituality so that we're not manipulable in certain ways. That being said, let's jump back to the slides and let's take a look at where Earth is at in this whole process. So what is Earth on the Kardashev scale? What is humanity on the Kardashev scale? Not just our planet, but like what are human beings? Our whole, civilization globally, what would it rate on the Kardashev scale of civilization types? Well, as I said, we are not even a type 1. We are considered in the type 0 civilization, which also wasn't on that chart. 4 wasn't on it, neither was 0. 0 means that you are below the type 1 civilization, and that's what humanity is right now. We are considered by most scientists who take a look at the Kardashev scale to be a 0.7, a 0.7 on the Kardashev scale of civilizations. And this means that we're making our way toward being a type 1, but it's still probably several hundred years away, at least a few hundred years away. And I would say that if we got rid of the barriers and problems and worked on the problems to attaining that status, that I've said many times that we would probably be able to do it. I think human beings have such ingenuity and creativity that I would speculate that it would take less than 200 years, maybe 100 years, maybe a little more than 100 years. But I think if we abolished the actual barriers that we're encountering to really advancing as a species, which we're going to talk about a lot here today, that we would break the type 1 barrier within 100 years, if I had to speculate. But that's a big if, okay? And as we're going to see, we're not really close to doing that because of so many beliefs that are contradictory to reality that humanity is still, insisting on clinging on to.